So partly the children were little. It was a difficult time anyway, and having that faith that after a few days I would start to feel better. That's what used to make me stop each time. So I, had far too much over the weekend, but I'd know that in a couple of days I'd feel okay. But there's one too many occasions where you wake up thinking, why am I doing this, suffering this low? That waking up riddled with anxiety and just feeling dreadful and thinking, do you know what, if I just hadn't drunk this weekend, I'd be waking up feeling pretty good now. And then for me, I started to look at the other side of it, because it was always, okay, you get a hangover, but it's worth it for the fun you have. So I started looking at the other side of it, and is it that much fun? Was I really enjoying it? When I was sat on the sofa, immersed in my dozen drinks or whatever, 12 drinks in, I wasn't happy. I was just completely comatose. There's no particular joy there. So, yeah, it started to get me to look at the entire picture.
This is Sober and Free, the podcast where real life meets real change. Stories told with honesty, courage, and heart. Today, we begin by telling you a bit of Susanna's personal story. Long before the microphone, before the interviews, before the community was built, Susanna lived a life many of us know too well. As a young woman still finding her way, she trusted people and things that promised comfort. People and habits that were deeply untrustworthy. One of them was alcohol, a substance that, for all its social appeal, quietly eroded health, shattered dreams, and pulled her towards the gates of despair. Alcohol isn't just a drink. It's a chemical force that rewires the body and mind, distorts hope, and steals promise. It broke sleep, it fractured relationships, it dimmed her sense of self. And yet, by the sheer grace of God, Susanna found her way back. She got sober, not by accident, nor willpower alone, but by uncovering truth, embracing it, and building a life that feels real. Today, she is a productive human being, a wife, a mother of two, surrounded by family and friends she loves. She is trustworthy, present, and alive to the moments that matter. And now she sits with others who have walked similar roads, people who also found freedom through seeing truth clearly. Our guest today is William Porter, author of Alcohol Explained, a book that has helped thousands understand how alcohol affects the body, the mind, and the patterns that keep people drinking. William brings a unique blend of experience and logic. He's an ex-British Army paratrooper, served in Iraq, became a lawyer in the City of London, and after more than 25 years of drinking, he stopped for good in 2014. His work breaks down the chemical, physiological, and psychological nature of alcohol so that the fog of confusion clears and the path forward becomes real. William and Susanna both walked away from traditional programs like AA and instead found sobriety by understanding how alcohol actually works in the body and mind, and realizing they never need to drink again. In this conversation, you'll hear part of their stories, different in detail, but bound by truth, curiosity, and freedom. They talk about reality, resilience, science, surrender, and what it really means to be sober and free. Stay with us. This is Sober and Free.
Hi, I have with me today William Porter, and I am just so blessed to be able to speak with this man that has written a book that genuinely helped me. If you don't have it yet, get the Alcohol Explained series. And so I bring to you today I'm sorry, but I can't help it, the great William
Hello.
Porter. Hi, William.
Thank you so much. What an introduction.
Yeah, I really revere your work. And Mr. Porter, William has found sobriety in some of those other ways. I hate to use the term trusting the science, but we're talking about that existential day by day science where we're figuring out what's working and we're figuring out what's not working and going just with the truth rather than a modality that's almost as much of a echo chamber as AA can be, or as much of an echo chamber, pardon me, as the pub lifestyle can be. AA can become that rather than feeling a total authenticity and freedom. So maybe I had asked if he'd ever gone to AA. And so on that note, tell me about the few bits that you found helpful and then why.
Okay, so yeah, as we were talking about, I went to AA. I think it was like two separate phases, if you like. The thing I found invaluable was talking to other people openly about my drinking, because it's stigmatized. It still is stigmatized these days. If you have an alcohol problem, people don't want to hear about it. It's not, people look down on you. You couldn't just turn up I couldn't have turned up at work and said I've got an alcohol problem. So it was very much hidden, and being able to talk to people openly about it, and people who had the same shared experiences, I found incredibly powerful. Apart from that, I didn't find it particularly helped me want to stop drinking. So for me, the ideal is to stop drinking and to not want to drink, to just not be tempted anymore. And that's where that freedom comes in. You're not constantly battling.
Absolutely.
And AA felt a bit like that to me. It was that constant work. And don't get me wrong, if it works, it works. As I say, the ideal is to not want drinking. But if you're still tempted and resisting, that's, in my mind, better than carrying on drinking. So whatever works, you do.
Right. I'm of the same mind. I'm not going to tell you to stop doing something that you feel is working. And you also have to be there as a launching pad, maybe to a next phase of sobriety. And it doesn't help if you think, oh, I shouldn't go to AA and go back to drinking. So I agree wholeheartedly. And then what brought you to AA?
So my drinking, I was drinking for about 25 years. I think I started when I was about 14, which feels very young now. My son's 14 and I look at him and think, oh my God, this is when I started drinking and smoking. It's astounding. Okay. But I was a binge drinker, so I drank regularly. Certainly here over in the UK, there's a big binge drinking culture at weekends. So you go out, and we never went out for a few drinks.
Right.
We went out to get drunk, to drink as much as possible. And over the years, obviously my drinking increased. I started waking up feeling awful and then drinking in the morning to sort of get back on an even keel. And it was just getting increasingly out of hand. I was never drinking all the time, but when I started drinking, I couldn't stop. So I would start drinking sort of Friday lunchtime. It would go into the evening. I used to find as well when I drank, I'd get really bad insomnia. So after 4 or 5 hours, I'd be wide awake.
Yeah.
So I find myself waking up and then having a couple of drinks to go back to sleep. So when I was drinking, it was every waking moment I was waking up drinking, falling unconscious, and just going through that cycle, and then sort of crawling out the other side.
Yeah.
Sunday, Monday.
It's hell.
Yeah, it's horrible.
It's horrible.
And the trouble is, you wake up, Sunday, you're feeling awful. Oh, it's Sunday, I can have a couple of drinks. And then that gets more and more and more. And then you're waking up Monday feeling awful.
Yeah, and you have this apathy when you go back to the drink that you're like, oh, I don't care now. And I find that there was an inner part of me, the small voice, that knew better. And we're going to talk more about the science. And now you know why you wake up after 5 hours. And I'd love to talk about that because I love that stuff. I love the biology and chemistry of it all. But before any of that, I had an inner voice that I wasn't listening to, but it was still there. And she was trying so hard to get in touch with me. In the shower, she would talk to me. The next morning when I felt awful, she was using that. And so then the resolve and the rules come out. But somewhere between the apathy and the rules, there's this little part of you that says, just stop. and
Mm.
but it's not strong enough because of the propaganda, because of the programming. And I'm not going to get into the conspiracy theory of the propaganda. I've matured in my sobriety to know I'm a bit of an activist, but I know that there's no particular faction to blame, and it's not powerful. So but it is a programming, isn't it? Like you said, the UK culture to go out and get blotto, which is I think an
Mhm.
English word.
Yeah.
My
Indeed.
father
Yeah.
is English. He was born in Durham, didn't come on off the boat till he was 28.
Okay.
So, I'm half English. So I think maybe that's why. Maybe I should blame you. But that was me, and a lot of the listeners know my story, so I won't go into that. And what was I trying to say? And I remember those moments in 3 a.m. when you knew the truth, and the
Mm.
truth was a little bit louder than it usually is, and it was so uncomfortable, wasn't it?
Yeah,
And
really was.
lonely.
Yeah.
And
Mm.
I never want to go back to that piece, disregarding, notwithstanding everybody around you, notwithstanding probably all the mistakes you're making. None of that. But when you go to that place, the quiet place inside you, that's the hell
Mm.
for me. Anyway.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so, because I've read your books, and although you speak very matter of factly, I wanted to talk a little bit more about your heart, which is why I bring that up about that quiet side of you, because
Mm.
people can read the books and absolutely, like I said, go ahead and get them. They're invaluable. They're like a textbook to me, even though I have the audio. But now I want to talk about your heart a little bit. When you were growing up and you were applying rules and they were working, and you were sober for a while, and then you'd go back to drinking, and perhaps the personal disappointment, and then meeting your wife, your marriage
Yeah.
family, and take me through some of the heartache in your drinking, if you can remember any, so that we can cross over to the other side of the street with someone who's there, and then we can build them back up, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was sort of similar to you. The really dark point was that waking up in the middle of the night and just being alone, because obviously you're drinking. A lot of the time I was on my own drinking, but you're out, you're watching TV, whatever, and it feels all right. Everything's good and you're fairly happy, or with company or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's that waking up in the middle of the night and you're suddenly alone with your thoughts. And that's the time you start to see it for what it really is, because it has a very dark side to it, I think, for a lot of people. Um, and that was the strange thing, I'd wake up riddled with anxiety, depression, and I'd sort of get up, go to the front room and have a couple of drinks, and suddenly everything was fine again. Felt,
Right.
confident and happy and tired, and went back to sleep. And but it's that disparity between the two. And I think that's part of the problem, is the feeling of having had a couple of drinks is a good feeling, and that's what keeps pulling us in all the time. It certainly was with me. When you hit like a rocky part of your life, my brain would always jump to have a drink. It would take the edge off things. And I
That's the
think that was,
programming. My last
yeah.
guest has a programming audio, and he got sober overnight, and by all means listen to it. Unfortunately, the audio took a hit, but whatever. He's from the UK as well. No, sorry, he's from Australia, and he lives in Australia. And he talked about that programming, which is, I feel happy when I have a drink. I feel better. And even though there's 15 out of 100 experiences where it doesn't quite work, there's
Mhm.
85 where it did.
Mm.
Like maybe 80/20 is a good example. So I go back to it. I'm grasping at straws. And that's also it in the middle of the night, that moment. And I consider suicide. A lot of people do, because it
Mhm.
was adjacent, like the thoughts
Yeah.
adjacent if you're not 100% there. But another thing was the absolute knowledge that this isn't the way, but we're so graspy because we're tired. We're
Mhm.
so tired that how are we going to climb that mountain of sobriety? Not now. I'm too tired.
Yeah.
So that's really propagating this cycle, and it's so shallow. Also for your
Mm.
work. Before we talk about your work, because I was interested in your work. My sister's in law, and
Mm.
I love the whole idea of law. If someone said, okay, you have 5 careers, 5 lives, one of them would have been law
Okay.
for me.
Yeah.
Instead, I chose the theater and dancing and choreography,
Mm.
which has a very short shelf life. Um, anyway, Enough about what was that joke in Beaches? Enough about me. What do you think of me? No, anyway. No, so back to your life, how it progressed. So you knew that there was this fake solution, but you kept going for it. And then how was it affecting your life at that time during the day? Like you were obviously producing, you were at work. You tell me about that.
Yeah. So I had two young children at the time, and I think this was one of the biggest turning points because before, as I say, drinking a lot of weekends, it would come to the weekend, I'd drink a lot, but I didn't have anything to do really. I could sort of
Yeah.
slob around and feel rubbish and have another couple of drinks at lunchtime and start to feel okay again. But then when you have children, it completely goes the other way. The hard work is at the weekend when you've got two.
Right.
I think the kids were like 18 months and 6 months at the
Oh,
time.
wow. Yeah.
They're pretty full on. And it was, I mean, it's hard anyway, but when you're waking up with a very bad hangover, it turned for me what should have been a difficult but pleasant experience into just something that was horrible.
Yeah.
I just wasn't enjoying it. And I started to realize that I could no longer justify drinking at the weekend on the basis that it didn't matter. I didn't have anything to do. I would just be sitting around, like I say, recovering
Mm-hmm.
because that was gone. And one of the good things, because I didn't drink all the time, I knew that after a few days I'd start to feel better. And when I say better, I mean better than I had done throughout my drinking. So even, most people will say, oh yeah, first couple of drinks, it's really nice. I knew that after a few days of getting good sleep, eating healthily, doing a bit of exercise, I felt better than even when I was drinking. And I think that for me, that was one of the biggest things that allowed me to quit. I had a very definite belief that I would feel a lot better when I got through those few days. Tempting as it is to say, right here and now I feel awful, I've got two ways to feel better. A kind of a superficial way, which is to have a drink and then feel okay then for a bit. But really, that way you're just kicking the can down the street
Yeah, and when
because
our inhibitions are down, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I just had a thought and I have a bad memory because I'm old. When the inhibitions are down, we have to always be careful about the halt. Alcohol Anonymous has a few great slogans. Never being
Mm,
too hungry, angry, lonely, tired. And in the
yeah.
halt is when we take the lower. We might not go to bed when we're tired,
Mm,
when we're feeling sober and free, somewhat sober and
mhm,
free, but we don't go to bed. Whatever. Maybe we miss our wife. Maybe we miss our kids. Maybe we want to like stay up and engage because we haven't
mhm,
as much. So we stay up and we have a drink and we take that lower place, if we're going to talk
mhm.
levels, of, well, now I don't feel like I need to go to bed. I feel a little bit better. And then the cycle begins. Yeah, absolutely. I know that compromise.
Mm. Yeah, so it's sort of going along like that for me. And so partly the children were little, it was a difficult time anyway. And having that faith that after a few days I would start to feel better. That's what used to make me stop each time. So I, had far too much over the weekend, but I'd know that in a couple of days I'd feel okay. But there's one too many occasions where you wake up thinking, why am I doing this, suffering this low? That waking up riddled with anxiety and just feeling dreadful and thinking, do you know what? If I just hadn't drunk this weekend, I'd be waking up feeling pretty good now.
Mm-hmm.
And then for me, I started to look at the other side of it because it was always okay. You get a hangover, but it's worth it for the fun you have. So I started looking at the other side of it, and is it that much fun? Was I really enjoying it? When I was sat on the sofa, immersed in my dozen drinks or whatever, 12 drinks in, I wasn't happy. I was just completely comatose. There's no particular joy there. Um, so yeah, it started to get me to look at the entire picture. Again, obviously, we spoke about um, waking up. That was another aspect. Why, alcohol's a sedative. Why am I waking up after 5 hours completely unable to get back to sleep? I would be absolutely exhausted, fall asleep, and be wide awake after 5 hours. The anxiety would ramp up, and again, why is this sedative making me feel incredibly anxious? So at the same time I'm sort of looking at how it's affecting me and how I'm feeling and whether it's worth it, I had these questions about what's actually going on here. And that's really what the book was about. It was about trying to piece it all together so that it made some kind of coherent sense to me.
Very wise.
And I think
So where did you go for your research? Sorry, I just want to directly
Yeah, so
cut the
people quite
question.
often
What
ask
did you
that.
do? Yeah.
So I didn't at any point think, right, I'm going to research alcohol and what it's doing to me. It was more just of I'm generally inquisitive and I generally like to ferret things out and get answers to things. And I had been doing that for 25 years with my drinking. Have you heard of Alan Carr?
Yes, I read in 2012 The Easy Way to Quit Drinking. I
Yeah,
never had a problem with smoking. I smoked with the drinking, so I skipped the smoking one. Um,
yeah.
I have a lot of criticism. I've heard a lot of criticism about the drinking book, and I absolutely loved his chapter on the body and the physical. His understanding of our system and his
Mm,
reverence for the human system, for our bodies, I found really got me on the path to Annie Grace's book, to your book, Quitlet. You name it, I've read it, and there's more books than just Alcoholics Anonymous, right?
yeah,
There's
absolutely.
hundreds. So yeah, I love Alan Carr. But so you picked up Alan Carr's book?
So I read Alan Carr when, and I'm 50 next year, so that's to give some context. I think I was about 16 or 17 when I first read Alan Carr,
Oh wow.
not his drinking book, but his smoking book, because obviously he became very big on smoking,
Mhm.
and then the other books kind of followed on afterwards. But the thing I loved about his smoking book is it was so practical,
Yeah.
pragmatic, matter of fact, common sense, and it just, to me, all made sense.
And it gave you, sorry, but it stopped offloading your sobriety or your abstinence from cigarettes and brought it back inside within yourself, because he has you keep smoking and doing your own, running your own experiment. And people really like
Yeah,
that kind of autonomy. They
yeah.
don't want to feel dependent. We're not islands. We need a community. So that piece, but another piece of it is a sovereignty within our sobriety, within our abstinence. And I think it's an
Mhm.
important piece that sometimes we miss with AA and stuff. So I agree with you that that practicality of, let me just go over here and work on my own for a bit. Alan
Mm,
gave us that as a society,
yeah,
and it stopped with the moralistic option. Like there's
yeah.
no judgment. It really, he found a way to really remove that judgment. I found just with his language, with his experiments, with I absolutely love Alan Carr.
So that's basically what it came through. So as a 16 or 17, I've been drinking for a few years. I read his book to stop smoking. I really liked his approach, sort of practical common sense. And I don't think at any point I thought, right, I'm going to apply that to my drinking, but it just sort of happened naturally. So like I say, when I was waking up at 3 in the morning thinking, well, how am I wide awake if this is a sedative? I should be asleep for 12 hours. So I kind of researched the physiological effects of alcohol on sleep, and so there was no point where I thought, right, I'm going to sit down, research, and write a book. It was more just your day to day thing. You know, if something pops up and you think that's odd, I'll try and work that out. And obviously that was sort of 25 years of trying to delve a bit into the science and psychology, but also, as I say, seeing how it made me feel. So kind of self analysis. So it was the mix of the two started to build this picture of alcohol, which didn't tally to the rest of society's
Absolutely.
view of it.
So I love that part of your book where you talked about the two legs. Um, just quickly as a addendum, can you take us through that? The two legs, how your body keeps compensating to bring it back. I'd
Yeah,
love if you just give us a brief overview of that.
yeah, no, absolutely. So obviously your brain creates and excretes a huge array of chemicals, drugs, and hormones itself. So these are naturally occurring things. So like adrenaline, cortisol, endorphins, all of those things. These are chemicals, drugs, and hormones that your brain creates and excretes. Okay, and there's a huge amount we humans don't understand about this process. But what we do know is the brain works by way of something called homeostasis, which is basically a fancy word for a balancing act. So you've got all these different chemicals, drugs, and hormones, and when the balance is good, you generally feel, like positive, fairly happy. A lot of these drugs and hormones can be put into one or two categories, either sedatives or stimulants. So stimulants obviously wake you up and make you feel more awake, and sedatives dull things and make you feel more relaxed. So, a common one people would have heard of is adrenaline. It spikes your heart rate, makes you feel more alert. And of course, there's outside drugs as well, like caffeine is a stimulant, nicotine is a stimulant, alcohol is a sedative. So when you've got that in place, if you imagine, and I sometimes to my mind, it's easier to imagine it. You know, the old-fashioned weighing scales where you've got a bar in the middle
Yeah.
and two baskets coming off. So imagine that's your brain, and in one of the baskets you've got stimulants, and in the other you've got sedatives, and it's balanced equally. Now, if you drink alcohol, you're adding to the sedative basket so that it tips up. Now, your brain's striving to keep the balance. So, what it does is it lumps more into the stimulant side. You know, it actually releases adrenaline, it releases cortisol, which is a stress hormone, to try and balance it up. So, as it adds
Yeah.
into the stimulant basket, if you imagine the balance then tips so that it's equal again. But the problem is, the alcohol doesn't stay in your system forever, it disappears. And then when that happens, it tips the other
Yeah.
way. So you're overly stimulated. And an even simpler way of thinking about it is for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So whatever sedating, depressing effect you get from an alcoholic drink, there's a corresponding feeling of anxiety when it wears off.
Hence the
So that's,
waking up in the middle of the night.
yeah, alcohol's got a half-life of about 5 hours, and a half-life is how long it takes the amount of a drug in your system to drop by half. So that's why most people will find after 5 hours, they'll wake up. You can be absolutely exhausted and really tired, not slept well for weeks. But after that 5 hour period comes, you're awake because you've got all these stimulants in your body.
Yes.
So no matter how exhausted you are, you cannot go back to sleep. It's sometimes liken it. Imagine if your natural sleeping pattern is at 11 at night to 7 in the morning, so you've got 8 hours, and if you sleep those 8 hours naturally, you wake up feeling at your best. Drinking alcohol is like setting an alarm for 3 or 4 in the morning,
Yeah.
and waking up and having loads of energy drinks, like loads and loads of caffeine, so you can't sleep. You're really anxious. You're really shaky,
Yeah.
and that's basically what it does to us. Which is also why the drink in the middle of the night was such a pleasant one for me, because I was overstimulated, really anxious, and by taking that other drink, again, let's go back to the weighing scales. The scales are out of balance because the stimulant side's got too much in it and the depressant side's moved up. If you have another drink, you're immediately correcting that balance.
Absolutely.
And that is the pleasure for regular drinkers. That lovely, relaxed feeling they get from that first drink is no more than relieving that unpleasant feeling that's been caused by the previous drinks.
Yeah, and they look at it so plainly. And there's an expression here called chasing the dragon.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You say it there too, which is you might even have had the best one when you were 14, and then somewhere you're chasing that like for the rest of your drinking career. It's
Mm.
possible. I was 14 as well. I got into the brandy, and then I went to
Oh, wow. Okay.
blackout. And a lot of
Yeah.
drinkers that have had to make these fundamental changes to their lives, and if they're lucky enough like us, go completely sober, because Laura
Mm.
McCowan said it, we are the luckiest
Yeah.
because we never have to dull our senses. But a lot of people I've talked to and listened to had that blackout, or you might not have, but had a blackout from their first experience with alcohol. I did. Well, not the very first one. I was 7 years old at the Christmas table. We were allowed a sip of wine. So there was some of that.
Mm.
But at 14, when I actually overdrank, I went to blackout, and the
Mm.
body reacted horribly and expelled from both ends. I was
Mm.
so sick the next day. And cerebrally, mentally, you'd think, even as a 14-year-old, I mean, you're pretty smart. Like, have you looked at junior high
Mm.
school work? It's pretty hard. Like, you're pretty smart. I have a 16 and a 20-year-old. They're actually
Right. Yeah.
smarter than me. You can figure it out and go, oh, well, I'll never touch that again. But that's where the world comes in.
Mm. Mm.
Like, if the
Yeah.
world was like, what are you doing? That's arsenic. Stay away. You would probably
Yeah.
never drink again.
Mm.
So
We
there's a lot of components.
Yeah, we also kind of trivialize the hangover as well. It's almost something you laugh off, and oh, I was really hungover, and people sort of laugh about it. And it's not really something to laugh about. You're taking a drug and so much of it that you're making yourself physically ill. You know, if people were doing it, if someone was sat there eating so much that they threw up, you'd think they had a serious eating disorder. But with alcohol, we just kind of shrug it off and laugh about it.
Yeah, and disease isn't much different than alcohol. You're taking in disease. Like, but when you
Mm.
have a disease, it's like revered. And because of the pharmaceutical industry, it's like, oh, disease. And that's all we talk about. It's like, ho, ho, ho. wait a minute. We have a natural access to perfect holistic health most of the time. But we all know that everything's 80-20. 80% is coming from that negative side. And we've been able to strong arm sobriety. We've had to, I don't know about you, but I was swimming upstream. I still am. I've lost
Mm.
friends. Oh, I was going to ask you about that. I had an issue with someone coming on the podcast that is stage 4 cancer. So she's had to cut out alcohol. And I saw her on Instagram drinking a glass of wine, and she can't, like, she can. And she's doing very well. She was given a few months to live a few years ago. So she's doing amazing. And she's my superhero. Like, I absolutely love this woman. But I was going to I want to talk to everybody who's not drinking for all kinds of reasons, cancer being one of them. And then we could talk about whether or not the doctor recommended that you go sober, because sometimes they don't, and that whole thing. So I saw her drinking wine, and I said, was that wine or was it just for the Insta? Because she was going to be on the podcast. Like, we're really non-judgmental when it comes to alcohol. People wouldn't think that. They think, oh, well, that William, you can't drink around him. He's not he's just a life of the party, So
Yeah.
but we don't come. My husband drinks. He drinks beer when he watches football. And I don't think it's good for him, but he has agency. So with this friend, we had a thing, and it's a different level. It's like a different level of understanding that she said, are you judging me? Go away. I don't have time for this. And I was like, oh, she misunderstood me. Like, so tell me about that in your social circle, how your sort of little change of direction went over with them.
So yeah, when I stopped drinking, it was kind of at an odd time. As I said, the kids were quite little anyway, and my friendship group were kind of in a similar situation. So we sort of stopped seeing each other a fair bit anyway, just
Right,
because we had young children. With my family, it was probably hardest because they still drink and they're quite heavy drinkers.
Wow.
So it's kind of a bit difficult. I think for me, it's difficult. I don't mind people drinking, but I do find it difficult trying to speak to people when they've had a few drinks.
Well, and there's a
when
big difference. Sorry to, again, I interrupt, I know, but then I have a
Oh, no,
there's a big difference between someone who's drinking and I don't know how, but fine with it, and someone who's drinking and having those lonely 3 a.m. meetings with themselves. Like, there's a big difference. And I think there are people that are drinking and they're fine with it. Honestly, there's got to be, because otherwise they wouldn't repel us. They wouldn't be repelled by us so much, or me. But I think there's disingenuous people out there who privately want to quit and then publicly move into that apathy space. So do you think there's anyone in your family that would like to quit, but they just haven't told you about it? Or, like, there must be if they're still heavy drinkers.
Yeah, I would think so. It's always difficult because it's like you said with your friend. As soon as you approach the subject, a lot of the time, if people are drinking, their defences come up, and I've learned that from personal experience. So how I position it is, I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm happy to talk about alcohol. I'm happy to talk about benefits of sobriety. If you don't want to talk about it, let's talk about something else. And I don't open the subject with people, and I don't force them to talk about it because I think it's counterproductive.
But don't you find it strange that they don't come to you? Like, I am not as advanced in my accomplishments, if you will, with this space. I've just entered this space about a year ago. I have 3 years sobriety, so I'm just new, and people are starting to see in my community that I'm the sober girl and stuff. And so I think it's kind of normal that there's really been nobody that's come to me, just being totally honest. I'd love to say I'm a big sober coach and I have a ton of clients. I don't. They've gone mum and they've all scattered. So I'll just put a pin in that. I'm praying about it. I just want to be available. I told my sister that. She said she drinks too much. I said, hey, when you're ready, I've got a way to like infuse your body with vitamin B. I have a few books to read. Like, there's a workable method. And I have accepted that. But you have this book and this following, and I can't believe that. Of course, you took the perfect path, which is, hey, you know what? I'm here when you need me. But people don't like reach out to you and say, help me.
Some people do. Yeah, I think the problem is though, it's like with any drug, you've got two ways of dealing with it. You've got a very thorough, difficult way, which is to work through never taking it again, or you've got a short-term, superficial way, which is to just have one more dose. And it's always easier to put it off, and it's so easy to put it off for another day, just one more day, just one more day. I think this is the problem when you've got, a work deadline or something's going on that you might not want to do a piece of work, but the deadline eventually comes closer and closer. Like an exam, you put off revising for it until the last minute, then you have to do it. A lot of the time, it's the deadline that forces us
Well,
to
yeah,
take the
like me
action.
getting my extension cord 5 minutes before our podcast, even though I've been looking forward to this for 3 weeks. Like, what is that? Like, why didn't I do a whole like test yesterday in this new spot? It's something about only being motivated in the thrill of the crises. Like, it's
Yeah,
yeah. So you think it's that? You think it's timing, and people are just putting it off because it's easier?
that's the thing. I think there's a few things in life that we want to make a change, but there's no deadline forcing us to do it. Drinking, smoking, those kind of things, there is no deadline, so we always so easy to put it off another day. The other thing, obviously, if you're in a job you don't like, or you're in a relationship that's maybe not right, but you don't want to have to make that break because it's such a big thing. It's so easy to sit there and think this isn't right where I am now. I want to be here, but actually just not today. I can do it tomorrow or next
Well,
week or
then
whatever.
sometimes people get a diagnosis. Sometimes people have
Hmm.
someone else who has a horrible experience or dies of alcohol, and then they make the change. Loss of a
Hmm.
parent or loved one. We have these things that move us into crisis mode, basically, and then
Hmm.
create this deadline. So, did you have? I'm thinking back to my thinking process the day I had my last
Yeah.
drink, and mine came in quietly after 19 years of having rules, 19 years of getting sober, reading Quit Lit.
Mm.
Like, I'm insane. Here I am asking and like seeming confused that people don't just want to quit drinking. But now when I say it out loud, I'm like, Susanna, it took you 19 years of saying this isn't good for me. I really want to stop. And actually, you were doing that too, William, because you had periods of sobriety. So you too would probably have loved a lot of those times, a few dozen maybe, to stay sober. You would have loved it. And you didn't either.
No, no. There was always something.
Yeah.
I did have some fairly lengthy periods of sobriety, but I never at any point there said I'm never drinking again.
Yes.
What I would do is say, right, I'll have a month off or 2 months off or
I
whatever,
had
and
2 years
I'd have it.
once. No, no, I'm
Oh
I
wow,
had
okay,
I had a year in a slip or 2 years in a slip or something in a slip and then another year.
right.
And I was in AA and I still didn't stop because I described that as I was holding my breath underwater and I got super
Mm,
fit. Like I had veins. And that was like another drug. And I was
yeah.
still, I was on the run. I was running away from it. Literally, I
Mm,
ran on the treadmill 7 days a week, 5 miles a day. Like, think about that for a second. Like, that's fucking
mm,
crazy. And I went 17 months and only missed 6 days of running 5 miles a day. Like, I would run at 1 in the morning if I hadn't been able to go yet because life, children, whatever.
yeah, yeah.
So I was still running, and so yeah, I'm stupid because I asked this question about why don't people want to quit, and then oh my gosh, the final day for me wasn't a diagnosis, it wasn't a crisis, it was simply I don't know what it was, saturated in the truth. I think.
Hmm. It's an interesting one because I don't think you can always pinpoint it. Because going back to the weighing scales, forget the stimulants and sedatives. There's a pro and a con to everything, pro and a con to drinking. And what you've just described is 19 years of reading Quitlet. So getting information, putting it into the different scales. And then one day it might be something tiny, but it's just that extra bit of information or understanding that tips the scales to make you think, right, that's it, I'm
Yeah,
done.
and a few of them. One, I didn't go to my son's baseball practice knowing he was getting an award, and he was 5. He was literally 5. Like, think about that, people. A little 5-year-old's getting an award for being the best catcher. What, he caught one all
Mm,
season because he's 5. And I got an email, and it broke my heart later when I realized. after I got sober that I had done this, that I was refinishing my furniture, but I didn't care about the furniture. I just wanted to drink my white wine and refinish my furniture. And I knew he was getting an award and my husband didn't. I didn't tell him about the email. So then he would be very insistent that I come, and he would shame me. And so he should, if I wasn't going to come and stay home and refinish the furniture, drink.
Yeah.
You know, I kept the information. He went, oh, Nick got an award. And I act surprised. Like, what? So that
Crazy.
was a heartbreaking mom moment. And then the walking on the beach in a beautiful space on vacation with my husband. This was the last time I drank. It was a few days before the very last time. And now I can say it and not be afraid of it. Like with AA, you know, fear it for today, just for today. No, a few days before the last time I drank, I was in the most beautiful space on Vancouver Island, Victoria. I can't remember the name of the area, Campbell River. Like that's where the biggest fishing, one of the biggest fishing spots in the world. And we'd gone fishing the whole previous day and I barely drank like a beer or two. So it wasn't about that. It's just, I'm not 100% myself. The next day, I couldn't wait to go into the little town and find somewhere to, eat our nice lunch of seafood and oysters, but it was the white wine I was after. Like I was hunting it like a bloodhound. And I couldn't be present to this space that was beautiful with the water and the beach. And I thought, and something changed in me and I went, is this how it's going to be? Like forever? You're not going to be here. You're going to be mentally, spiritually in the restaurant drinking wine. Even though I didn't actually have to drink till I got was past it. I didn't even have to because I knew where the train was going. I didn't have to go all the way into the station. And we got home and it was our anniversary and I had to have half a bottle that was in the fridge. I had to have it with the thing because my tolerance was up. So you have to maintain. And then I went, I have no choice. I have to drink this wine with dinner. I have no choice. And that was the last straw. And I could say a bunch of swear words right now because that's how I felt. And I didn't tell anybody. I quietly quit.
That's what, like I say, it's that tipping of the scale sometimes. For me, it was a much bigger situation. I crawled out of sort of 5 days of almost solid drinking and felt absolutely dreadful. And I just thought to myself, I can't keep doing this. I can't
How
keep
old were
waking
your kids on your last drunk?
So they were that age, sort of 18 months, 18 months, 6 months. Yeah, so still quite little. And I was just like, I can't do this. It's just ridiculous. Keep waking up like this.
It's laughable. Like what the F are we doing? I had children and partied and stayed up a couple of nights in their whole babyhood. There was 2 nights, 3 nights where we stayed up all night, you know, using drinking and then the baby crying in the next morning and feeling that just utter hell. And I went into his room and wondered why he cried for hours. And I just ignored him because you leave a baby crying and then they stop crying because that's how you train them, you know, and I don't know, he's 11 months or something. So I had left him when I was sober, people. Like, no judgment. I'd left him. I'm sleep training. But this was just an excuse. I had left the light on full all night.
Oh, right. Yeah.
I went in the morning. I was so tanked and out of it and then balancing it with a stimulant and doing that I went in the next day. And this is embarrassing. Thank God I didn't drive a car and kill someone because I know that there are people that admit that when we're talking about their sober stories, and God love them for that, because that is the biggest piece of shame and have killed people. I haven't interviewed anybody that's killed people, but we've heard it. So, but just leaving that light on is an indication that worse things were to come. I still didn't quit. Nope, didn't quit. I didn't quit until that baby was, it was Nick, and it was 2023, 14 years old. So I wait 14 more years. And I think that's the reason for my podcast. It's like, and my group in Facebook, it's like, I got to do something. Because I've wondered why is this a little bit, I feel pulled, and a balancing of my sobriety. And I'm an order because I was trained in the theater. So speaking makes, my mom was a broadcaster. I mean, speaking makes sense to me to do a podcast. But that's why I think it's just trying
Mm.
to help, and not in a charitable way, in a way that says, we get you, we understand, and feeling ashamed is not going to help you get sober.
Yeah, I think for me it was sort of a similar thing. It took me 25 years of self-analysis and research to get to the point where I realised I didn't want to drink anymore. And I think part of what I do is hopefully shortening that process for people, because those 25 years of heavy drinking,
Yes,
they weren't particularly pleasurable. I could have done so much more with my life if I wasn't just slumped on a sofa comatose.
totally.
And to be able to step into someone's life, and well, some of the best things I read is like people have read the book, they've stopped drinking, they write to say thank you, and they've got years ahead of them. So without it, they're going through what we were going through, trying to work it all out, failing, trying to moderate, all the rest of it. And if you can give information to people to allow them to cut through years and years of that and actually come to a decision further down the line, it's a fantastic thing if you can do it.
And it definitely keeps me sober. I mean, I don't think I'm in risk to drink, but not thinking I'm at risk to drink is a symptom of a problem. I will take that from AA, that I understand the premise of being
Mm,
at least aware of, uh, it's not maybe around the next corner. I don't really look at it that way, but I do look at maybe it's adjacent, maybe the thought's
mm,
adjacent. So maybe in a crisis, and someone hands me, who knows? I was going to say, we both sort of stated why we give back in this way, in our own ways, and give time to the sober community. And now, who did you sort of look to in your, not only with your, let's just call it research, but some of the Andy Ramage,
mm.
the Tribe Sober group with Janet Gorond, Craig Beck. He's a fellow in the UK. Do you know Craig?
I do, yeah.
Okay.
I know.
So
Yeah.
who did you listen to at first, besides Alan Carr? And I don't know if he has a community. Tell me about that, about some of these community members that we turn to, that we really learn alongside and look up to. Who was that?
This was the funny thing, because when I stopped, I stopped in 2014, and at the time there wasn't really much out there. So that wave of sobriety we're seeing now with all the different communities, all the different ways you can turn it wasn't there at
There,
the
right.
time.
Well, Alan Carr
So
and I think Craig Beck.
Craig, Craig Beck might have been. Alan Carr was. Jason Vale, he's another one. So he was a protege of Alan Carr, and he wrote a book about drinking.
Right.
But there wasn't the community that you can get these days, and I think that was the thing that was missing then.
Yeah,
I
and
sort
that's
of
why you went to AA, because there wasn't this.
yeah,
Mhm.
something, yeah, absolutely. But I think that's where things are so much better these days. There's so many different communities you can join. Going back to what I was saying at the beginning about AA, it was so powerful to be talking to
It
people
is. Yeah.
who had experienced the same thing.
I recommend that in the beginning. And Janet said that to me when I listened to the podcast. I put sober into Spotify and she came up. As simple as that.
Mm,
And she said, I need a community. Well, basically, she didn't say it that. She said other stuff too when we were emailing. And she was answering personally, which I liked. And they keep their membership limited. So I'm not in a Zoom with 2,000 people.
mm,
It's 20 to 40 people at the most on a Saturday morning. Out of South Africa, it was kind of hard to connect time wise, so I always attended the Saturday. And the Saturday was invaluable. At 8:30 in the morning to start my weekend, it does
mm,
offer protection when we're with the few that are finding sobriety freedom, because it is still, for as big as the sober movement, the alcohol free movement is getting, we can still feel that we're swimming upstream.
mm,
We can still
absolutely.
feel like the minority when we go to an opening, to an art gallery, to a graduation, to a wedding, there's still this just automatic programming that you must drink, like you will drink. I don't know why alcohol is at every play you go to, at every like I don't know, but it is still prevalent.
It really is.
Yeah.
very deeply ingrained. And I think over the last few years, we've definitely seen a shift away from it. But it's a long
Yeah, and you
process.
can still go to a party and there's no alcohol-free options except for soda. Like that's
Yeah.
just salt and water.
Mm. I was at a pub the other day and they didn't have any alcohol-free options. It was like water or orange juice or something,
Yeah.
which, to be fair, you see less and less of. And a lot of time these days, there's a selection of alcohol. I quite like alcohol-free beers, and it's been a long time since I've been somewhere. But you still, even now, come across places that just don't have it.
Okay, so I wanted to talk to you about that. How do you feel about the price of alcohol-free beverages and the inflated price? How do you feel about that?
So mixed feelings. It's if I go into a pub and get a bottle of alcohol-free beer and it's £4 or £5, the same price as an alcoholic variety. But like, you've got to bear in mind, like with a pub, you're not just buying the drink.
You're buying the
You're in the establishment, and it's particularly in London, these establishments are not cheap. The rent's sky high, and they have to charge high prices to get there. I actually, strangely enough, really like pubs. They're very old fashioned. They're very much a part of British culture. I like going into pubs. And a lot of them are closing down these days, and I think that's a shame. So when I go into a pub and have to spend
yeah,
£4 or £5 on an alcohol-free beer, I don't begrudge it at all because I just think that's fine. That's keeping the establishment open, etc., etc. And I think so. When I buy them in the supermarkets, they're £1 a bottle or something, so not that
well,
expensive, cheaper than the alcohol version.
some of the alcohol-free wine. Okay, I have probably 2.5 pounds to every one. No, the other way around. There's 2.5 Canadian dollars to every pound, something like that. So
Hmm.
an alcohol-free bottle of wine will be $15. And
Okay.
Okay, you can stop scrolling. What if I told you there's skincare ritual that actually changes your skin reliably, the same way getting sober changes your life? Most products talk about glow. Ramon delivers it. Hi, this is Susanna. And as many of you know, I'm in my 50s, but my skin's never looked better. It's smooth, glowing, and my hyperpigmentation is about 75% reduced. And that's not fluff. That's results people ask me about all the time. Ramon's 3 pillars are simple: cleanse, hydrate, and protect. Their signature double cleanse removes everything that dulls your skin, just like letting go removes what dulls your life. Here's the guarantee. If you stick with their ritual, your skin will look and feel more balanced, vibrant, and you'll be more confident because it's not magic. It's proven transformation. Tap the link in the show notes and try Ramon today. And if you want 10% off every order, message me and I'll show you how.
Stay with us. This is Sober and Free.
So 9 pounds, 8 pounds, and the same as alcohol in the maybe $20 in the store. In Canada, booze is more expensive than the United States. That's a fact. So I begrudge it in the supermarket because I just don't know if it's necessary. Because here, the reason the alcohol is expensive in the jar store or the liquor store because of tax. And I
Yeah.
happen to know that the alcohol-free bottle of wine shouldn't be charged tax. I haven't actually looked into it. Maybe it is charged tax, and then the problem is with the government charging the tax for the alcohol-free because of the 0.05. So I don't know, and I don't care. I'm mixed as well. I absolutely agree with what you said about the establishment or about an environment in a nice restaurant or bar, and it takes a lot of work to procure all your supplies and pay the rent. So thank you for that, because I'm going to change my tune. Oh, another request, if anybody's out there that has anything to do with this, could I please have some that's kind of alcohol free, but also no sugar? Because they're high in sugar, and that's I'm gonna we'll move on to your book about food and the sugar quotient. But I am sugar free. I'm carnivore, so I don't eat any sugar except some naturally occurring and some dairy. It's only been a few months, and by the way, I had to go alcohol free. And then I was basically keto and then moving into carnivore. I don't think it's something that you can do if you're not feeling it, because it's exactly what you said. You have to not want it. And I don't want anything other than the beautiful steak and a little bit of cheese and the eggs that I'm eating. I don't want anything else. I went to a party last night with a potluck with hundreds of dishes. And I felt that in some ways I've arrived. I'm like, oh, I used to have an eating disorder. I was a dancer. It kind of goes together. And I'm like, I don't know how, but praise God, I'm here. I really only want what I'm eating, and the inflammation's gone, and that. So alcohol free without the sugar, but tastes a little bit like alcohol. I don't know if anybody can make that, but that would be nice. So tell us about your next. Oh, first of all, Alcohol Explained 1 and Alcohol Explained 2. They're available on Audible. They're available on Amazon. Is there anywhere else that they could get it, or is that basically the two places? Well,
that's
one.
two places, but it's so if you go to the website, the first 5 chapters of the first book are on there
Nice.
and you don't have to put in your email address and everything. You just literally just open it up and read it. So
Perfect.
if you are interested, you can go there and have a read, see if you're going to click with it or not before you buy it.
Yeah.
But no, Amazon really.
Amazon, yeah, that's where I got it. And I said 2 things, but Audible is Amazon, so I recommend it. Start with 1, even though 2 you could eat. You could eat it. You can listen to it without 1, because you do a great job of summarizing what you said in 1 and then adding on. The reason that you wrote number 2, if I understood correctly from your forward on number 2, was that you just kept adding on to the Audible of number 1. I thought that was hilarious. And good on you.
Yeah.
So I might as well just write a second book.
Yeah, well, that was the thing. It's with Kindle Direct Publishing, you just upload a document and it's there. So when I first wrote the book, it was easy as I was getting into contact with people and talking more and having new ideas or different thoughts about drinking and addiction. I could just add it in.
Yeah.
And I was doing that. It was kind of like a work in motion. But yeah, eventually it just got too big and had to be a second book.
It was big. It was quite full that I didn't think there would be anything else. And then you'd have another wonderful chapter. And so there's a depth to your inquisitiveness. There's a depth to your ability to hold on to ideas that it's really great that you took the time and the energy to write this for us. And I think a lot of people have books in them, but not everybody. Tell us about, before we go into the food, the diet regime book that you wrote. What's it called again? The
Diet of This Explained.
Right. Before we go into that, tell me about this process. How many years did it take you to write Alcohol Explained? And did it feel draining your energy, or did it give you energy? How did you manage that, writing a book?
So when I decided to write it, and this was off the back, I think, of going to AA and really going to AA looking for answers, why is this happening to me? Why am I drinking like this? Why do other people have 1 or 2? I can't have 1 or 2. And it didn't really provide any of the answers. And I found from my own knowledge and self-analysis and research, I had quite a bit of these answers anyway. And I'd see quite a lot of AA, the same desire for information that I had, because when we humans have a problem to solve, the first thing you have to do is get information to understand it in order to know, it's how we address problems. You get all the information in. So people are saying, this is a problem, is it a problem, whatever, and they've got a lot of questions. And I felt like I had some, at least, or a good proportion of the answers, and it was those answered that had allowed me to find sobriety. So I kind of had in mind that I should write it down, and I set about writing it, and it was incredibly difficult, not least because in the book I break everything down into a chapter, but when you're drinking, you just experience it all at once. It's all together, and it's really difficult to deal with a topic without referring to other parts of it, particularly if and where do you put it in the book? Because you're talking about this, well, I need to have spoken, and it was just ridiculous, and I just sort of gave up on it and thought, this just isn't working. And then it was a bit after that I went back to it, and it was a completely different experience. So it was almost like giving birth. It was just ready to come out, and I just wrote and wrote and wrote, and I really enjoyed it. Every spare moment I got, I would sit down with the laptop, I'd lose myself in it, and it was really enjoyable, but also very cathartic for me, because having thought I had a broad picture of how it all fitted in together, when I actually started to write it, I realized there were gaps in it. So I was going back to the research, back to my own memory, talking to people to sort of fill in those gaps. So it was hugely beneficial for me as well, because it filled in the gaps that I hadn't even realized were there until I went to set it all out.
Well, you describe the flow of the creative process, and it's just so beautiful. I went through a period of time where I was painting, and sometimes it flowed, and then it stopped flowing. Do you like Elizabeth Gilbert? You know, Eat, Pray, Love. She wrote.
I don't know.
I can't remember her new book, but she talks about the gift and the flow of that process, and that sometimes the tap can be turned off. So your tap wasn't really turned on, although you had an intellectual concept. And it sounds to me, and some people call it channeling. Napoleon Hill's book, Think and Grow Rich, the wife told him never tell anybody that this was channeled. In other words, it just came to him and he wrote it down. He was a scribe more than it's something that was born out of his own thoughts. And I realize your book was born out of your thoughts, but when it flows, there is an X factor there. There is something that is flowing. And relying on that and knowing that it will be there when it's your turn. Because in Elizabeth Gilbert's second book, I think it was her second, maybe it was her third, she writes about, there was a poet who used to get poetry almost like a download. And she was world famous. And I'm very bad at telling this story because I should have the poet's name if she was so famous. Maybe it was Carr. I'm thinking Alan Carr, Emily Carr, but regardless, she was 10 to 15 years old. She was a young teen, and she would get this poem. I literally love this image. She was in the country. She'd be out in the field playing with butterflies. Really, I mean, could you get a more happy picture than that? And this feeling of this poem coming at her with the wind, in the wind, and she would know it was coming, and she would start running towards the house so that she could get the pen and write it down in time. And it would be beautiful. And it was, so the way she describes that, I really love, because it captures that as a creative, we're all the creatives. We're all an extension of the creative, that I'm not creative, I'm creative. That's impossible. You're a human being. You have all the components. It's more about access. And then you had access and getting sober, all these components. But I love that, dream, that if you have a dream to write it, paint it, knit it, anything it may come. Like what I think we need to do is prepare ourselves, prepare the vessel, live a good, free, sober as part of it. I stopped painting. I went back to drinking after a couple of years painting. Okay, this is not a very good one. The one I'm pointing to, I had better ones. They're hanging in other people's houses. I kept all the rejects. Paint it, think it, do it, write it, say it, whatever. And if you can't now, I love that story, William, that you just said you sat back down and then it came. Because I think that gives people so much hope to live another day. It will come. And just prepare the vessel, right? Which was what you did. You prepared yourself to open up the heart, which is where that book came from. Even though it's very sciencey, I found that it was engaging, and it was for some reason resonating with us. And it doesn't resonate if it's not coming from the heart, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
My heart to your heart, and your heart to everybody's. So, well, now that you have all these like revolutionary sober people, because trust me, you've helped maybe 1,000, maybe 100,000 people get sober. I really believe that. So kudos. Now that you've done that, then you thought, well, let's move into one of our other detriments, one of our other problems in our world today, which is the food. So talk about that book. I haven't read it yet.
So that was that's sort of a similar approach that I took to alcohol, of just kind of trying to analyze. It was trying to understand what we eat and why, because lots of people aren't happy with their diet, either their figure or what they're eating or whatever. And the other thing I find frustrating, I think, is there's so many different pieces of advice, like you should eat this, you shouldn't eat that, you should do, and it's almost impossible to know. And the worst of it is, what's correct today is not correct tomorrow. There'll be a new diet that's, oh, it's fantastic, it's working for everyone, and then a few months later, no, that's out the window. And it's like human beings haven't physiologically changed over the last few years that what they eat should be different. So it only means that there's no real great understanding of what we're eating. And I tried to do sort of a similar thing that I did with alcohol, which is just really break it down to its simplistic parts and try to sort of analyze it and understand it a bit. So it was a very similar kind of process.
I added to my carnivore place, which may or may not be the way I eat in 10 years. I
Mm,
think I'm, because I've solved so many of my issues, but it's not right for everyone. What I said
mm,
about first getting alcohol free, then
mm,
definitely eliminating grains and so on. But I do believe that everybody's constitution has to flow with what their idea is, because we're all one piece.
mm.
I say that quite
Yeah.
often, that if I were to drink right now, my body might explode going, what the are you doing? Because it doesn't gel with my beliefs. And it's not like your
Mm,
beliefs are one thing and your biology is a different thing. It's one thing. And our cells
yeah.
communicate. And I'm sure there's data that it also communicates, like actual pieces of knowledge that the
Mm,
cells tell the body. We believe this. That's that whole um, when you get a placebo, but you're still healed.
mm,
It's all about the psychosomatic. So with um, taking the breakdown of what you're talking about, I think it might help heal it within me.
mm,
My almost not anger, but I'm a bit, well, yeah, I'm a bit pissed off at the whole food thing. It's brought me a lot of sadness through my bulimia, through my overeating. I was in OA for 5 years. Like every day I went to a meeting in Toronto as a young dancer who would binge after the show, put on
mm,
30 pounds, lose the weight for the odd. I was just hungry all the time for something. And who
mm,
knows? And I won't go into the science of that. I think I know why I was hungry all the time. So I think that's very wise to look at it that way, as um, there has been a lot of confusion, and confusion is part of the problem. And if you look on a like religious aspect of things, they say that the devil offers confusion. I think
mm.
food's in there. We have been confused within what's right for us. And I don't know how you feel about this. I don't know if we're as different of what we all need as we might think. I think that there's going to be a through line with all humans as far as what we need to make us healthy. And then we always add the caveat, oh, but everybody's different. I mean, how different are we? Like, can you speak to that at all? Do you think that there's some commonalities?
Yeah, no, I think so. I think like physiologically, we are incredibly similar. I think the first biologically correct human beings, or what we now think of human beings, came out of about 650,000 years ago, which sounds like a very long time. But if you think of the millions and millions of years that evolution's been going on for, it's actually a tiny amount of time in the grand scheme of things. So our digestive systems won't have changed over that period. We should really be eating natural food that we were eating then. And I think the problem is several fold. There's so much food is
Yeah,
processed, so it's not natural. But I think the other thing is alcohol becomes a sort of a stress relief because it is a sedative. So, if you're feeling uptight or angry or whatever, you almost naturally reach for a drink because it's an anesthetic. So it takes the edge off things.
absolutely.
But I think the problem is we eat for much the same reason. So obviously you eat when you're hungry, but when you eat, your brain releases endorphins. So a lot of people comfort eat. So, I'm not hungry, but I'm bored, angry, whatever. So
Yeah.
it takes the place of that almost like a coping mechanism.
Yeah, I overate. I didn't overeat at all. I comfort ate last night,
Mm,
even with some shawarma beef, because it wasn't just beef. I didn't need it. I'd had supper, but it was unsatisfactory. Sometimes I can't find my food, but I was fine. I had had enough. I know that.
mm,
But I was so tired because I had a couple of learning curves this week, which I find exhausting. And then I ate the rest of a shawarma wrap and threw away the bread and just ate the shawarma. Well, that's filled with, and it had some sauces in there, whatever. So
mm,
I'm even dopamine eating, and I don't have a lot of processed crap in me, 3 months of carnivore, and yet I'm still reaching for it because I
mm,
say that the processed food begets more processed food because it's a bit of a craving maker.
mm.
So I believe a lot of my cravings have gone away. I'm not eating in the evenings anymore. I'm satisfied much more easily and all of that. And yet I still reached for something in my exhaustion last night. It had a lot to do with winter driving in traffic and being stuck on freeways, and it's minus 25 and
Yeah.
and a lot of
Yeah.
driving yesterday. And drivers out there, especially in your big centers, I hear you. That is going to set you up to want to go home and grab a sedative. Like, stop.
Yeah. Something.
Driving is
Yeah.
exhausting. Sorry, a caveat or total aside. Do you drive in?
I do. Yeah, I drive.
Are you in?
Yeah.
Where are you in the UK? I don't even know that.
I mean, near London.
You're London.
Yes.
You drive
Yeah.
in London. What?
Yeah.
I didn't even think that existed. I thought it would be all just
No.
town cars and cabs.
Yeah. No, funny enough, I see this is odd. I really enjoy driving. I find it relaxing.
Even in traffic,
So
like when you're stuck in the same spot for 2 hours.
no, to be fair, but even then with the radio
Right,
on,
the
and as long
podcast.
as I kind of like philosophical about it, I'm stuck here, I can't do anything about it, I'm sort of all right with it.
I drive
Yeah.
professionally part-time. I'm an unemployed
Okay.
school bus driver that helps them out sometimes. That's the way I look
Right.
at it, because I was in the office. I was at dispatch. I was helping out, with the sales department of all the charters and doing all that. And sometimes I would send out all these charters to the drivers and I would think, I think I'd rather just be driving. That's because the world is there. The little kids get on the bus and they're like, they're just adorable. They're not bad. People talk about kids being so bad on a school. Not if you talk to them.
Yeah.
Not if you're that adult to their child. If you're like, hi, how are you? Look at them in the eye and accept their compliment when they say they like your earrings, or when they say you're pretty. You're like, oh, you're pretty, or whatever I do with them. And they're like, are you going to be our bus driver? Like, they just, like, this is one of those secret little jobs that I thought, oh my gosh, I did it during COVID. And now I'm like, I can't get out of it. I even went to another bus company. And I'm like,
Oh, right. Okay.
no, I'm going to be dispatch. A long story. And they were soulless, and I had to come back to this wonderful small little company. But I was driving through the city, and I did finally accept a route for the rest of the year. The kids need help. It was a behavioral issue, and I said, I'll do it. It's a short route. And I love being part of the community. I love having a civic job. I was in sales most of my life. We don't need another salesperson. Well, you guys all stay in sales that might be doing sales, but we're good. So my point being that I was driving and learning and this, and it was really at that point that we recognize where, maybe when you've had a big case and you've had so much trouble and you actually maybe do have to go to trial, and you're just, and I was there yesterday after I drove, 4 or 5 hours yesterday. And then I drove 1 hour to go down south to the other yard to help them with their potluck. I wanted to be there for all those drivers and tell them how awesome they are and meet them all. And I was an hour in traffic just to get there. And I would have probably loved the sedative of a drink. There's no way I would, because I know too much. I know too much.
Yeah.
You've ruined my drinking.
Yeah, you know where it ends up. It takes the pleasure out of it to a large degree. But I think this is part of the problem. Humans have become very accustomed to consuming things to change how they feel.
I know, our mouth. What is it with our mouth? We're fixated on that oral fixation. It's been at least said for years, since the 90s at least, that, oral fixation, it is a fixation. It's a problem. Before I forget, are you still practicing law? You must be.
Yes, I am.
What kind of lawyer?
So I work in insurance.
Insurance.
So
are you like investigate? Do you have investigators?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, so I work for an insurance broker. So I often say it's probably the most boring law in the entire world, because if you think of the law of insurance, it isn't the most exciting.
Well, maybe it's exciting when you catch people lying.
Yeah.
That's the only time it's exciting, when people are doing bad. Right? If you're actually just checking all the boxes, I guess that can be. But there's a joy of dealing with people, no matter where you go, when you can actually interact with people at that human level. You probably have a lot of paperwork. Like we all have, even bus drivers have paperwork. More than you would think. I have to tell Alberta Roads every single moment that I'm driving, I'm standby, I'm off, where I am, what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I use an app, but still, I was like, the damn paperwork, it gets everyone. It just gets everyone. But the human aspect of things, it'll still be there. People, they need insurance because when they're in trouble, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, theoretically, it's a good thing because the losses of the few are paid for by the premiums of the many. So everyone chips a little bit of money in, and then if you lose your house,
Right.
There's a mechanism by which you don't lose your entire life savings that are in your property. So,
and they've hired
absolutely.
you on the insurance side to make sure that people aren't being disingenuous. I mean, that's,
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
I would think that's just a necessity. My sister practices family law.
Oh wow, that must be
She's
geez.
the right
Okay.
person for that because she's very compartmentalized. She can really just have this huge problem issue
Mhm.
and go on with the rest of her day and then get back to it. And as a woman, that's very good that she can do that. That's what I see in her. And then therefore, with the family and children involved and all that, you've got to be able to just temporarily file that file, close that drawer, and then go about your life. She has children of her own, and so she's managing to balance it, from what I see anyway, quite well. She's a King's Counsel lawyer now, so learned fellow. Right? My learned colleague, they have to call her now. I don't know. You must have that pomp and circumstance in
We do.
England. That's where it comes from.
Absolutely.
Do you have to wear a wig?
Absolutely. No, not at all.
Okay. When did that
Never.
stop?
Yeah. It still happens, but not for the branch of profession I'm in.
Okay. Is that why you chose it? So you don't have to wear a wig?
That wasn't the only reason, but one.
Oh, it really was. Oh, that's great. I see it on TV and I'm like, seriously. Like Michelle Dockery from Downton Abbey.
Yeah.
She was in a show that I can't remember the name of it, where she was wearing that. Is it called a wig? Is there another name for it?
I think it must be. Yeah, I don't know that it's got a specific name. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, the wig and the robes, and yeah.
And it's very funny for us in Canada to see that, and we're sort of from the UK because I mean we had the Queen was we only got our own constitution in 1982.
Okay. Yeah.
We're still part of the Commonwealth, but it's symbolic. So I was born in late 60s, so I grew up knowing that we're part of the Commonwealth, and I'm, grade school, and so but still, we look at some of the things on TV. That's my only exposure. I haven't been to the UK in years, and but I love it. I love your culture, and you're on the brink of. If you listen to some of the talk shows, the podcasts out there, it sounds like, not to get into a broader topic of your political situation, but you're in a bit of trouble of losing that culture. With your perfect balance of the parliament with the monarchy, and everybody's just out to destroy, and I'm sure it's rooted in greed the same way it is here. Basically everything is. And so, so we can do our good in our own little corner. And I believe it's so valuable what you're doing. I mean, I believe it's valuable what I'm doing too. Otherwise I wouldn't do it. But I really, I'm thanking you so much for coming on my small show. I only just hit 1,000 downloads. Like, I really am doing this very part-time, and I'm not like a social media guru. Like, I don't even know what I'm doing. I just put it out there. The RSS feed goes to wherever it goes, and I advertise it on a big Facebook group, and that's it. That's the end of it.
I think that's all you can do. There's you can look at the world and start to lose heart and all the things that are going wrong, but I think all you can do is look at something you can change.
Yeah.
And like for me, it's like I say, it's being there if people want some help and advice stopping drinking, and to be able to help even one person makes it worthwhile.
Absolutely.
And I think that's all you can do. You just look at the little bit you can control and something you can do, and that's what you do.
And I think there's more people many more people that might be listening to my podcast that never reach out to me, and maybe it did help them. I met another driver down the block, and I just gave her the name of it. And then 2 weeks later, she texts me and says, "We've been listening to your podcast."
Wow.
Like, I don't know what that means. Maybe she sat down and listened to all of them. Maybe she just listened to a couple, but who knows what her drinking issues are. Like, we we just met. We didn't talk about that. Maybe she has a daughter. Maybe she's drinking herself. Maybe it's helping. And that's why I recommend people on the podcast, because I want to be a bit of a, I don't have that much expertise except for my own experience. And the freedom that I feel has some value, because I think I can help people. If I can figure out how to explain it, maybe I can get people, like you said, faster here, but maybe they've got to go through what they've got to go through. And then introducing different authors and workbooks. I had Kate Lewis on a couple of weeks ago, and she has this wonderful workbook that's with or without AA. And that's a real physical thing that may help. And your book. And I think that your book is necessary to the shelf for the quitter, for the alcohol quitter, because it will be, do you know what I do? Oh, I'm so glad I remembered to tell you this. When I have a question that's just lingering, because there's thousands still, even when you're sober, about alcohol, I go and Google. I've done this probably 100 times. What's William Porter's take on?
Okay.
I literally, because I don't want to sift through your book, no offense. So I just get the chapter and piece through Google or my search engine. What does William Porter say about this? You know, if someone says something that challenges me and I'm preparing for a podcast and I don't know, well, what does William Porter say? Oh yeah, that's what I think too.
That's good.
You're my guy. And that's why I was so thrilled. But seriously, he's going to come on my show. He's going to talk to us. So thank you a million.
Continual knowledge. Oh no, not a problem.
And then I always like at the end of the talk, I always like when you give a person a piece of advice today. And advice, I mean, I don't really like the word advice. Maybe there's a better word. But something that we can do to help someone who's on day one. Maybe it's the evening. Yay, you've made it this far. We're going into the witching hour and you don't know how you're going to handle it. Maybe it's the morning and you're feeling awful, mentally or physically or both. Can you say something to just tell them maybe where they can go first or what will help them get through the day today?
Like I mentioned earlier, the thing that helped me was the absolute belief that it would get better, and knowing that after a few days, a week or so, I would feel so much better. I would say to them, trust the system, it does get better. But remember that progress isn't linear. So it's not a straight line up. You'll feel good one day, you might feel rubbish the next day. So it's not a straight line. There's ups and downs in it, but broadly speaking, you're on an upward trajectory. As long as you don't pick a drink up, you're on that upward trajectory. I already mentioned how alcohol affects our brain chemistry, how it affects our sleep. Just those two things alone, getting your brain chemistry back to natural and sleeping properly, has such a huge impact on your quality of life.
And how long does it take initial stage? And then I have a few numbers in my head, but tell us about what they can expect as far as amount of days or weeks and maybe a couple of stages within the first 3 months. Like maybe you can talk about that.
What you'll normally find is the first few days you might feel quite anxious because the alcohol's gone and you've got those stimulants left over. If you're a regular drinker, you might not sleep very well because even people who drink very mildly, they drink at the end of the day. So it knocks them out. And your brain, so you and I who don't drink, when we get towards bedtime, our brain naturally shuts everything down. If you drink alcohol regularly, your brain stops doing that because it just relies on the sedating effect of the alcohol. So for the first few days, you can find it really difficult to go back to sleep. And a lot of people find that intimidating because they think, I can't sleep without alcohol. But the fact is you absolutely can, but you just need a few days for your brain to catch up with that. So just bear that in mind. If you're a regular drinker, after that anxiety stage, you can sometimes go the other way and feel really tired and drained. Because if you're drinking regularly, those additional stimulants are in your system almost all the time. And for the first time in however many years or decades you've stopped drinking, they've gone. And it's like, imagine if you drank loads of coffee every day and suddenly stopped, you'd be really tired and drained until your brain got back to it. So that's often what people find. They'll find a few days of anxiety and difficulty sleeping, then they'll go the other way and be really tired. But just know that is not sobriety. That's not where you end up. You just got to keep pushing through. And when your brain finally gets back to normal, that's when you open up what we find with that great joy of drinking, and the thing that you don't want to give up ever again by going back to it.
Yeah, and it's sustainable. The joy I feel, if I feel it, it can last hours, maybe into the next day. Whereas there's no way, because then you shut it down by going into blackout or passing out. A lot of people do. When you're trying to keep feeling good on drinking, the body's finally going to give out. You can't just keep feeling good and keeping the drunk going. Well, I'd still be drunk if that were the case. I always say, if it were still working, I'd still be drinking. I'm not in some moral place where, well, you know what, it wasn't good for me, so namaste, I'm going to quit alcohol. Like, the opposite. I'm an idiot. I would just keep banging that thing until it finally wasn't working. Like, I'm a total loser. I gave up 19 years of my life. And so are you, William. You gave up 25. Like, we're not like, oh, we're winning, you know, like Charlie Sheen, winning. That's not us. We're like, oh, we totally failed. And here we are. And now, little by little, we're winning.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is like our second life, William. We got a gift.
Absolutely.
We are the luckiest, but only after. So the shame, shelf that shit. Like, it doesn't matter. You were propagandized by the whole world that this is the way to get relaxed. This is the way to celebrate, and just ignore the fun you're actually having. Just ignore that. It's like, it's insanity. But knowing that it's going to get better, that is everything. Go out for a walk, drink some water, pet your puppy, do what you need to do. And I think preparing for the situation that's coming up tonight that you think that you're going to struggle with, what can you do? Google it. There's a lot of lists from wonderful people that have worked, that things you can do to protect yourself. The unexpected joy of being sober has 30 things to do in your 30 days of being sober. Like, just the what you can do on a practical level. Bring ginger ale with cranberry sauce with it, or not cranberry sauce, cranberry juice with this. Make this great cocktail and bring it with you. Like, whatever. Yeah. Or don't go. Maybe don't go.
That's the other option, or the one that I found was the breaker for me. Go, but plan an exit strategy.
Yeah.
So, okay, I'm going to be there at 7. Sorry, I have to leave at 8:30. So you turn up, and that for me makes it so much easier, especially if you haven't been to a social occasion for 20 years without alcohol.
Right.
It's so much easier to turn up and think, you know what, I'm going to go for an hour, and that's it. I'll just go for an hour. So, don't go, or just plan your exit strategy. At this time, I am leaving.
And people are sober in the beginning. So it's genuinely, like last night when I went to that potluck with the drivers, there was no alcohol. I love that. I work with Muslims. The head of the dispatch, she's an Italian that wears a hijab, and the manager of the South Yard, she's also Muslim from Uganda. And it just happens to be that because I'm working with Muslims, it wasn't intentional, but the alcohol's not around.
Yeah.
So it works for me. So go to your local Muslims grocery store or whatever, and you might make friends. I'm serious. And you might find that in that culture, you don't have to become Muslim and fill your boots. I mean, go ahead. But it's very important that on a deep level, your belief allows for the idea that the need of alcohol is a lie. That's the lie. And if you choose to keep drinking, knowing that you can almost drink in a more perceptive way, maybe that's the impetus for moderation, which I truly believe some people can do. We've had a lot of discussion on that with Tribe Sober, Moderation Mary, or the moderation myth. It's been called. I don't know. I mean, what do you? Physiologically, I don't know if moderation is possible. You know more about the sciences. And you don't have to go into the long explanation, because I really want people to read about moderation in your book. It's so good about the experiments that they ran. But briefly, tell us about that moderation myth and what your take on that is.
So it's a lot to say on moderation, but because I mentioned the physiological side earlier, so, you have that feeling of sedation and it gives way to a feeling of anxiety. There's 2 ways you can get rid of that feeling of anxiety. And I mentioned them before. You either do the thorough long-term way, which is wait a few days for that unpleasant feeling to go and get back to normal. But the far quicker way is to have another drink, because you feel out of sorts because your brain's geared up to work under the sedating effects of the alcohol, but there is no alcohol there. So for me, that's why I never had the first drink, because I know that if I can't resist the first drink, after 20 minutes, its effect has worn off. I want it just as much as I did in the first place,
And
but
more.
plus I've got this lump of
Yeah.
anxiety that I want to drink to get away from it.
It's a withdrawal symptom. So one
Yeah.
person on Facebook once, I loved this comment because it really shone a spotlight on our lack of understanding to a great degree in the general public, because she said, we talked about quitting, I think. She said, yeah, and I was lucky, I never had any withdrawal symptoms. I go, well, did you ever reach for an additional drink and the next day thought, I shouldn't have had that fifth drink? She goes, well, yeah, of course. I go, that's withdrawal. But you have had withdrawal symptoms. If you drink more than you plan to drink, it's built in. So, yeah, moderation is a huge, huge topic, and I will recommend again that that it doesn't really work for people after a certain amount of alcohol. It's like there's a tipping point, and then it's impossible. Maybe one you can moderate, and you wait 25 minutes, 30 minutes, the symptoms have passed, and now you're out of the danger zone. That is one way to moderate. If you maybe use a clock and drink something else, the feeling will pass. Boom, you've moderated. However, once you get steeped in your second, third, fourth, I don't know, moderation went out the window for me.
Yeah, it's for me, it's easier to just, I don't drink.
Exactly.
And that's it. One of the big things that drags people back to drinking, all addiction, is cravings. Craving is a conscious thought process whereby we obsess and fantasize about something. Okay, so by saying, I don't drink again, I'm never going to drink again, I mean, I spend 80%, because of what I do, 80% of my waking hours thinking about alcohol, but I don't crave alcohol, because although I'm thinking about it academically, I'm not fantasizing about it and obsessing about drinking it. Now, that's one of the best things to quit properly, is that certainty, because if you know you're not going to drink again, you're less likely to get into that mindset of obsessing and thinking about it and just not being able to concentrate on anything else apart from shouldn't I have a drink. Now, the problem with moderating is you're opening that door to the possibility of having a drink. So even when you're moderating, even if you only have one once a week, you've got that thought process
all the time.
And for me, that's not how I want to live my life, because moderating, you can spend as much time obsessing about alcohol as if you were drinking all the time. Admittedly, you haven't got all the downsides, all the drunkenness, the hangovers aren't so bad, all the rest of it, but you're not free. And it's that freedom, I think.
Yeah, not totally. You still got a small shackle. You might not be feeling ill, but you're still, well, like the elephant that's attached when he's a baby, and then you unattach him and he still stays there. You've still got that. Also, physiologically, before we get our drug, when we're anticipating and we're shopping and we're going to the store and all that, we almost can start feeling some of the symptoms of, I'll tell you why I say this is he's very controversial. This guy named Anthony William, he writes The Medical Medium and a bunch of other books. And he believes that, again, he was channeling it. It was a voice out. Okay, this is wild, but it was a voice outside his right ear that told him that his grandma had cancer when he was 4. So he believes he gets channeled medical information, and a lot of it. Having said that, I read his book called Liver Rescue. I love it. I believe a lot of it. I really don't understand it. And he says at the beginning, this is 30 or 40 years ahead of our time. So it's going to be very controversial, but I'm open-minded and open-hearted. It gets me in trouble sometimes, but overall, I find that balance, I think. Anyway, I read Liver Rescue, and obviously there's a lot of writing about alcohol in Liver Rescue. And one of the things that he said was, if you go to the pub every Thursday night, your liver will start preparing on Wednesdays. You go to pub every Thursday. Like, it's the brilliance of our filter system. So I believed it was true for my visceral experience of, on the way to the liquor store, I was already starting to feel the good symptoms of what that liquor would bring me. And that's what I said about the communication and data within your body, within your cells, within your mind, that you're all one thing. And you're in the prison still if you're trying to moderate. And I say, open your mind and your heart up to the idea, borrow our belief until you get your own, that there is life out there with total freedom from alcohol. Borrow our belief until it becomes your own. So it's hard. I want to bring people there to what I feel today compared, and I know you do too, William, compared to how we felt, not only in the middle of the night, but in the middle of the day, in the middle of the evening, all the time. We just knew, like, we're like, I'm killing myself. And I just don't want that for anybody. But people have to follow their own path.
Yeah, make their own decisions. I think the other thing to say about moderation is there needs to be an acceptance of what it is. I think a lot of people have this wonderful idea of moderation where I'll have a glass of champagne at Christmas and I'll really enjoy it, and then I won't want another drink for if I get in the habit of it. So you're literally just having it when you want it, not having it for ages and not missing it. So you're almost back where you started when you first started drinking, of being able to take it or leave it. But that's not the reality of moderation. For most people, when they're trying to moderate, it's about wanting something, not being allowed to have it, finally having it. It goes too quickly. You want another one, but you can't. You're counting down the minutes until the next time you can have it. So I think that's another thing for people to bear in mind, is what moderation is actually going to look like, because for a lot of people it's not what they think it is. It's not this perfect world where they get in the habit of only drinking one or two once a week.
Well, the
It's
wolf
about
you
constant...
feed, the wolf you feed gets stronger. So why would you feed that wolf? It will break down your door if you've given it a little scrap. It's almost tempting it. Think about a big, huge wolf that's starving. It's on your doorstep. And alcohol can be like that, especially for people in AA. And it's out there, but it's starving. So it's not able to break down your door because it's hungry and it's weak. But you give it a scrap and you give it another one. And then eventually it's going to come in and we're going to be back to smoking a pack a day, which is a great way to see it, is with the cigarette, because we've proven that with our society. You can't just have one. Cigarettes, even more insidious than the alcohol. But thank you so much. I hope people have been able to sit with us for this moment and just get a glimpse of the truth that could be out there for them, or they're already enjoying this freedom. And we're here to celebrate that. So I will put, your website, your book, and everything in the show notes. And I've really enjoyed this conversation immensely. I appreciate your time. Really, that is the hottest commodity in this world, is time. So I so appreciate.
Thank you for inviting me. I've really enjoyed it. It's been nice to talk to you.
Yeah, and let's stay in touch. Messenger seems to work, so
it does.
Let's stay in touch. I would absolutely love it, and I'll attach everything and send me on Messenger the best way to get all your books, and maybe you have something else that I don't know about, and then we can put that in there and add anything that you would like if it comes to mind in the next coming days.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic.
This will be out at Christmas. I advertised it for Boxing Day, Christmas Eve. No, I think Boxing Day, to help people get through the holidays, with New Year's Eve coming up, which, if you're even up, which a lot of us sober people are asleep by then.
Yeah. There's no better way to see in the new year than wake up early, refreshed, having got a good 8 hours in. Yeah, that's my new year now. Absolutely.
It's what you said about, wait a minute, I know how good I can feel. And then fantasizing about that January 1, feeling amazing, going out for a long walk or a jog or whatever it is that you do to feel good. That can be your January. So I hope that this helps. And with that, is there anything else that you'd like to say, or...
No, I don't think so. No, we've had a good chat. I think we covered all of it. Yeah,
good. Okay, my love, nice to meet you again, and
nice to meet you.
And
Thank you so much.
Happy Christmas and New Year.
Yeah, happy Christmas and New Year. Well, when you release it, if you send me over the whatever, Instagram, Doodle.
Yeah, I send it over on Apple Podcasts. That seems to be the best for sharing, and then it will be on Spotify, YouTube, or whatever. And and absolutely blast it out. That would be great, of course. And I have seen some of the other shows that you've been on, and I just watched. I can't remember, but I'm into a new podcaster because of you. It was School of Rock Bottom.
Oh yeah.
I love him.
Yeah,
I'm just getting to
very
know him.
good.
I've
Yeah,
only listened to a couple. And so
yeah,
it's a wonderful web that we're all weaving of each other and visiting each other's shows and then the
mm,
books. It's great. Like you said, there's so much option in this sober world. So,
yeah. It's a modern world, isn't it? Being able to, podcasts, groups, communicating with people. It's absolutely
and this has
fantastic.
been a meeting because they say two people, that's all it takes. So we've had our little meeting and it probably has even helped us stay sober, even though we didn't feel like we needed it. I think that it's so important. So thank you for that.
Yeah, my pleasure. No, really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Okay, you take care.
Thank you. You too. Thanks again. Bye bye.
Bye.
When you first told me your name, I didn't hear a word
Sober and
you
Free is
said,
independently produced by Susanna
but it
Porowski.
was written all over
Talents
my
on this
face.
episode are
Should've known
Krisha
it was your
Yarmitska
love until the
and William Porter, and Susanna Porowski, your host. If you feel that you have a challenge with drugs or alcohol, please consult your local professional,
when you made it
and
down
please
the
feel free to reach out to Susanna.
aisle. Every
Her
moment
information
stole my breath.
is in the show notes.
Bet you could
Perhaps
see it in
we can
my
work on this
smile.
together. Until
Should've
next
known it
time,
was you
have a
all
happy
love until
and
the
sober day.
I don't know where this road leads. All I know is I wanna go with you in a life where there's no sure things. I am sure I wanna live it with you. If you look into my eyes, when our time down here is spent, it's in every single line. Hope you know it was you that I loved until the end.